morning everyone. Oops. Just trying to find you on my iPad. Right, let's have a look. Come on, come on. Okay, morning as people join. If you are watching back on YouTube, hello, warm welcome to you. My name's Stacey, I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from here in the UK. And if you're watching live on Facebook, I'm still the same person. Lovely day today, absolutely gorgeous it is. Doesn't feel very cold at all, which is a really lovely change. I didn't have to have the heating on out here for hours beforehand, which is always nice. So Thursday, which means it's the eve of the weekend almost. Woo, we've made it through another week. Well done everybody, especially if you're here in the UK in lockdown again. So today I am going to be using a little bit more moving along. This was really popular on Monday when I used it and I did really enjoy it, and I feel like I've got into the swing with it now. So I've got one card for you this morning to make. I've already made it, I made it this morning. So we can get started. So just say hello to people as they're joining. Morning to you, Let. Hi Anne, hi Janice, hi Denise. And there's some more people I can see are just joining. So what I'll do is I'll just flip my camera around and we'll get started. So bear with me guys. Okay, so you should be able to see my desk now. So I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit every week. So I'm using some of this ridiculously awesome, not ridiculously awesome, I'm using some of the Pacific Point colour, which for those of you that have followed me before, it's my least favourite colour in the catalogue. But I'm really starting to quite like it. I think it's all about just using it a little bit more, isn't it? So definitely enjoying this colour at the moment. And for some reason, as much as I kind of stray more towards the subtles colour collection, I'm really enjoying the brights at the moment. Who knows why? So we'll get started. I'm just going to grab my trimmer. My cup of tea is hot. I've ordered myself a little mug warmer to keep it warm, because yesterday I tried my thermo cup and I've got a really good Bowden one. And it kept it hot for so long that I still forgot about it. And every time I went to drink it, it was still hot. So yeah, I've ordered myself a little mug warmer. So I'm going to start with a Whisper White card base. And I'm going to score at 10.5 centimetres. Turn my piece of A4 card round and cut at 14.9. Okay. So we have our little card base here, like so. Okay, we can put that one to one side, we'll come back to that later. So for this, oh, I need another piece of white. This piece measures, I think it's 7 centimetres. So this piece here behind, I'm going to show you a bit of an emboss resist technique. So this measures 7 centimetres wide. So let's cut that down to 7 centimetres, and it's the same height as the card, which is 14.9 centimetres. Okay. So the idea being that this piece goes on there like so, but first of all we need to do a little bit of embossing and a little bit of colouring. So when you start with a technique like this, you can do it in two ways. You can either do your background first, which I've done with my blending brush, loving these at the moment, or you can start with your embossing. I tend to start with my embossing because I think you get a better finish. You're embossing onto plain card that hasn't been touched yet, so you get a better emboss. If I were to do my embossing afterwards, because the ink is wet, you'd have to leave it to dry for a little bit of a time before you can then get a really nice clean embossing. So I just prefer to do it this way round. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to need our Versamark and we're going to need our embossing buddy. So to start with, I'm going to do this in two halves. I'm going to do the top half, then I'm going to do the bottom. So the top half, I'm just going to go over with my embossing buddy to take off any static. And then from the Moving Along stamp set, I'm using the car outline. Okay. This stamp set, for those of you that don't know or weren't here on Monday, this is from the main annual catalogue. And it's one of those ones that's really easy to miss. But I really quite like it. So now I'm going to stamp using Versamark all over my card. Well, at the top part, we're going to do this in 2 halves because you don't want your Versamark to dry. And my Versamark needs refilling because it's starting to get a little bit less sticky. And again, this is one of those cards that you could easily change to any colour. So if you've got a favourite colour, or if you're making it for someone who maybe has passed their driving test, you could change it to the colour of their car. So now we've got our white embossing powder, and we'll add our embossing powder to our stamping. Tap off any excess. And that's the reason why I like to have my embossing powder in a bigger tub, because you just get less messy. And then we'll heat that with our heat tool now. So it takes a little bit of a moment to heat up. And then you can just about see that starting to change. Go, getting there, and you know when it's set because it goes quite glossy, so as you turn it into the light you can see it better. Okay, so that's those bits done, and then carefully with your embossing buddy just go around again. Be careful not to smudge that lovely embossing while it's still a bit tacky. So then let's finish up with the rest of our piece of card. And it's kind of like making your own patterned paper. You could even do this with all the vehicles or transport images from the stamp set. Okay, so I'm happy with that, and now let's add the rest of our embossing powder. So it takes a little bit of time, this process. You just have to be a little bit patient, but it looks lovely when it's finished. So that's all now nice and set. Yep, it is. So you can, I'll see if I can hold that, I mean just about so that you can see it out as it's catching the light. Look at those lovely wheels. Okay, so now we can put our embossing bits to one side, and I'm going to bring in my ink pad. So I'm using Pacific Point, which is from the Brights collection. And I'm going to create an ombre style background. I did this on Sunday with some Magenta Madness, and we created a bit of an ombre look, and I'm really into the ombre style, and it goes really well with the ombre papers that are part of the Celebration promotion at the moment, which you can earn for free. But this is paper DSP, sorry, this is cardstock that I've created an ombre effect on myself. So load up your blending brush, dab off any excess on your grid paper, and then starting at the top, and I tend to go in a circular motion. I'm just going to add my ink. Work your way down the cardstock. We want quite a stark, you want quite a dark look at the top. Now, to stop yourself getting any oil on your background, which can affect your the way it looks, the finished look, take a post-it note and onto the back, which is where your sticky side is, pop your fingers and you can hold your cardstock down with that. Just stops any oil off your fingers getting onto your card and kind of damaging your ink and your design. Oops. And then as you move down, just add less ink. So you can start to see now that ombre effect. I'm going to turn that round now. You also make really pretty patterns on your grid paper. And as you get towards the bottom, I find just little brush strokes rather than pushing down hard to get that real ombre kind of effect. I'm just going to add a little bit more at the top. So this technique with the post-it note also stops you from getting really, really covered in ink. So now you can see that our embossing has turned blue. So what we do, close our ink pad, take a piece of kitchen towel, and then you're just going to carefully wipe your piece of kitchen towel over. And what that does is that cleans the ink off of that embossing, but it doesn't take any ink off your background. So you can see that embossing now really start to pop. Okay, so what a difference. That's it. And when you're happy, it doesn't really take off too much ink, but it just really makes that embossing pop out, and that's the look that we want to go for. Okay. So Liana has popped a comment on, she has the ombre DSP, really handy, not just for cards but with punching and die cutting images. You want a simple variation like butterflies. Yeah, really, really nice. That's a fab idea, Liana. The ombre stuff is beautiful. Now, before we put it on our card, you'll see this little scalloped edge down the right hand side. I have a piece of Pacific Point DSP and it's 1 centimetre wide, and I have this edgelit die. This edgelit die comes from the Be Mine stitched dies, which are in the main catalogue, and they're all hearts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to my piece of card, and I want to make sure that the scallop edge is pushed up against the edge of my cardstock. Okay, I'm just going to add a bit of more washi to that. I'm running low on washi. Let's see what else I've got in here. Aha, here we have some silver. Because we don't want that to move as we run it through our die machine. So the idea being with this edgelit die is the scallop edge is our cutting edge. This bottom edge here, there is no cutting line at all. So you can either just make the edge of a piece of small cardstock like this, shaped with that scalloped edge, or you could add it to another shape, for example, and just make the shape scallopy. So I'm using the mini cut and emboss machine today. This is super handy. This is available in the mini catalogue now. Really lightweight, perfect for small dies. So I'm popping that on there like so, popping my other plate on top and then rolling it through. Okay, here we go. Jackie, you've put, looks great, never thought of inking overheat embossing. It's one of those techniques, it takes a bit of time, so if you're anything like me, you want things that are reasonably quick to do. So I always think, oh no, that will take too long, I'll just emboss over cardstock. But actually it's a really nice technique, especially with the emboss, the ombre style. Right, so we've run this through our die machine and we're just going to pull off. So that's our cut edge at the top, and I'll slowly peel off the rest. And there we have our lovely piece of embossing, not embossing, die cutting with that edgelit die. Peel off any excess washi. Just like so. So there we have it. So our piece of card could have been however wide as we wanted, and it would have just cut that one edge. So it's a really handy die. And now we're going to attach that underneath our piece of card. And I'm just going to use washi to start with. So that's our front, until I get this where I want it to be exactly. And I want it so that we can really see that stitched edge as well. So make sure it's nice and straight. That looks good. Push that down, and then now I can attach that to the back, and I'm going to attach that with some tear and tape. And but I'm going to try this using the card from the Christmas Coming Home set. Perfect, that card is so similar. It'll look lovely. Good thinking, Anne. And Sue's put, hello, I'm just a bit late. No worries at all, Sue. I hope you're all okay. So there we have our lovely now piece at the edge of our card, ready for us to put on our card front. Okay, so we've got our lovely card front. And now when you put that against the white, it all just pops, doesn't it? It all comes together really nicely. I forgot to trim off this bottom piece. That's great. So let's just put that onto our card now. And I'm leaving just a little border of white on the left hand side. That's it. So we can now leave that to dry. So the next part of our card, we have a little bit of stamping to do, but I need to die cut a shape. So I'm just going to grab my shape, and I'm using a die from the Tasteful Labels dies, which I think are actually over here. Hang on a second. No. Now, what did I do with that die? Is it that one? That's the smaller one. But that is the die from there. No, it isn't. It's from the Hippo dies. Ignore me, folks, this morning. My brain's in a fuzz. Hippo, 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 where are you? Here you are. And here is the die. So I'm using a die from the Hippo and Friends set. This is a really lovely set of label dies, as well as the dies that go around the hippos. So we're going to start by die cutting that out. I'm just going to cut this piece of white card down. So we'll bring our mini die cutting machine in. On there like so. Here we go. Apologies for the screen wobble. So we now have our little die to use. Okay. So I am using this stamp here that says Make Today Ridiculously Awesome. But you'll notice there is no Make Today on this card and I have stamped that ridiculously awesome sentiment straight onto that die. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and we're going to use some washi tape. Washi tape is my friend. We get on very well. I use it for so many different things. So first of all, we're going to mask off that piece of the stamp that we don't want to use or don't want to show. And then you're going to ink up your whole stamp. And then simply peel off that washi tape. Okay. Pop that over there. I've just got ink on my finger, which I don't want to get on my white card. So that means there is no ink on that top piece at all. We just have ink on the letters that we want to use. So then now you can take your stamp and you can stamp it onto your die piece. And none of that top piece shows. So it's a great technique for when you want to use just a portion of a stamp set or a portion of an image. Okay, so we've got no sign of that make today anywhere. I love that technique. So we can now put this onto our card like so. And I think this card would be great for someone who has just passed their driving test, because passing a driving test is a pretty awesome thing to achieve, isn't it? So I would definitely use this card for that reason. I'm popping that in the centre like so. Okay, and then we now need to do the UR, and again that UR is a portion of another image. So this comes from the same stamp set. I haven't actually shown you the stamp set. Ridiculously Awesome stamp set. So I've used Make Today Ridiculously Awesome, masked off the Make Today, and now I want this UR portion of this stamp. So I'm not actually going to bother masking that off because that's quite a large area. I'm just going to, where's my piece of blue card that I had? Where have you gone? Hang on a second, just get a little piece more. And because we're going to cut this out of the stamp, it doesn't really matter too much. So we're going to return to our embossing, starting with our embossing buddy. And then we want, Versamark, here you are. So just try and get that little portion of the stamp. Stamp that down. To our white embossing powder. Give it a little heat. That's it. And then I'm going to trim just the words down into little strips that I want to use. And these are quite fiddly. So we have you, and then R. Liana's, but I never thought of doing that so much tidier. It is quite a lot tidier, yes. I can't remember who I first saw do that years and years ago, and I just thought, why on earth didn't I think of that? Let's just put UR on here. I can use tweezers because my fingers are too big for that. And this just ties in the embossing and ties in all the different shades of that lovely blue colour. Okay, so you are ridiculously awesome, and of course we need to put a car on there, don't we? So I've got a piece of white, I've got our outline stamp, which I'm going to stamp in Memento. And then the other great thing about this stamp set is that you not only get the outline images, you also get the infill images. So that means it just makes things a lot easier when it comes to colouring your images in. So we're going to line this up, and this is a great stamp to use with the Stamparatus. I'll line it up as best I can. Oh, that's not too bad. And then we can just trim around that. Could by all means colour it in with markers or blends, but it just really does save you the time. There is, can anyone hear that bird? He's really going for it outside. We have pylons that run over our garden, electricity cables, sorry. And they all sit above the house on these electricity cables, and where it's been winter we haven't really heard them, so it means the birds are on their way back, which is lovely. So then we can just pop that on like so. Here's my glue, here's my glue. And there we have our little card. To finish, I'm just going to add a few little gems, because why not? It's a special card, so it's always nice to have some gems. What ones should we use? Let's use some of these. These are Night of Maybe, so these aren't Pacific Point. They are Misty Moonlight, sorry. And these are the in colour dots. Okay, so I'll just try and get those off. For some reason I think mine have got cold and then a bit too hot, so that's better. They've started to kind of separate like that. Let's see if I can get that one off. I think I need to move where I store my embellishments, because they are by my heater, and my heater clearly don't like my heater. So I'm just going to put 3 on, up there, like so. So there we have our finished card front. All I need to do is complete the inside of my card, because I've used regular basic white as opposed to thick basic white, so it's really thin. So all I would do is add another piece of Whisper White inside there to finish that card off. And I'm going to use a centimetre smaller piece. So we'll go to 9.5 centimetres by 13.9 centimetres, okay? So I'm just going to go around the edge of this with my blending brush. You can do this with a sponge dauber as well. I'm just going to use my blending brush really, really carefully, just to tie in that colour from the outside of the card. You can't really see it at the moment, but when I pop that card against the Whisper White, you will see it. So you can't really see much there, but when you put that down, you can definitely see the difference. It's still very, very subtle, but it's nice to just have a little bit more detail inside our card. Okay. And there we have our finished card design for today, Thursday morning. So let me know what you think. Some people are already commenting and saying, Janice has put beautiful cards, Sue's put great card. Thank you, ladies, that really does mean a lot. So just to recap before you all disappear and go about your lovely, lovely days, I have used 2 stamp sets today. I've used Moving Along, which is here, and I have used Ridiculously Awesome. So Moving Along, I've used the 2 car images. I've used the outline to heat emboss onto white card with white Stampin emboss powder. And then I've added some Pacific Point ink using our lovely, lovely blending brushes. This one here, lovely blue colour that now looks like. To get the heat, the resist emboss effect. Okay, I've stamped my part of my sentiment. This sentiment here says "Make today ridiculously awesome." I've shown you how to mask that off, so you just use a portion of that image. And then I've used another portion of another image from that stamp set to add that extra wording there. We've used the infill stamp from the Moving Along stamp set to colour in our outline. And then we've added this little edge die underneath down there and some gems to finish. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for spending a bit of your morning with me. I really do appreciate you spending your time with me. It's lovely to have a little chat and be creative together. My next live is at 8:30 on Sunday evening, so do join me for that if you can. The replay will be available on YouTube later on if you want to use it or look at it for any reason. And all the products that I've used are available from my online store now, so feel free to have a look at that. Don't forget to use the hostess code for January when you are shopping, and you'll get a free gift from me next month. So that's it, guys. Enjoy your day, and I hope to speak to you all very, very soon. Take care now. Bye.